Hey everyone, and welcome back to Video Game Esoterica. On today's episode, we have a really good treat for you. We have Total Vice, 1997 light gun game by Konami. This game is in fact quite rare. There's never been a full playthrough capture on YouTube. There have been a few kind of gameplay clips off televisions, and there's been a few screenshots of this game going around, but this is going to be the first time that anyone's able to see the entire playthrough of the game outside of having played this in an arcade itself. Interesting kind of game, kind of has a little bit of a Miami Vice feel to it, as well as a little Die Hard mixed in. You'll get those references further on down the line as you watch some more of the playthrough. Interestingly enough, if you play the game stage 1, 2, and 3 in order, the final boss of the game, Funk or Total Vice, he has two names, is actually the main villain of the game, where the third stage boss is going to be the second in command, and the first stage boss actually does come first. In the end credits, there's kind of like a little vignette of the lineup of them all being captured, and it shows you kind of who that main boss is. When I started the playthrough, I started on stage 3, went to stage 1, and then finished with stage 2. It's kind of the order I like to play the game because stage 3 is my least favorite stage of them all. But go ahead and just kind of watch this little attract mode, and we'll come back with the actual gameplay, kind of tell you about the game, a little bit of its history, and give you an overall sense of how we think this game would have been had it come out on home console.
I'll kill you all! Yeah, ow! Yeah! Ow! Yeah! Don't come any close! Stop it! Ow! Stay back! Yeah, yeah! Hey, man! Ow! Ow! Yeah!
Okay, so here we go. Just loading up some credits. I did switch this over to free play just because the memory doesn't keep. When I put it on free play and restart the board, it goes back to coin mode. So that is how it is. So target range, I didn't really show in this capture. It's really not that interesting. If someone really wants to see it, let me know. Otherwise, trust me, you're really not missing much. So this is Smugglers at the Harbor. A lot of the rumors are that the M2 platform took 30 seconds to a minute to load each individual level. That's kind of what's been reported. Clearly there, I think it took maybe 4 seconds. I do have a 48X drive installed in the unit, but since the bus is only 600 kilobytes wide, really it's still just going to load at that 4x speed. So kind of those loading speeds that we're told, not really that true. So here you go. This is the first look of Total Vice. You got these guys in suits, kind of like the classic drug dealer sort of look. Graphically, this isn't really showing a lot of what the M2 can do, kind of the same in Polystars. Evil Knight is a better example of kind of the power of the M2 platform itself. The game, to me, is quite fun, although it definitely in spots feels like it was rushed. You don't really have a lot of enemies. A lot of the voiceover clips are going to be the same. You'll hear, shoot, die, and many other things over and over again. It gets a little bit monotonous. But as far as the actual shooting component of it, the actual gameplay, it is pretty good. At spots, it does feel a little bit like it's too much of a quarter muncher. It can be a little bit cheap. You'll open doors and there'll be enemies shooting at you before you even have a chance to react, kind of just trying to intentionally inflict damage in a way that you can't actually defend. But as far as games go, I still definitely enjoy this one. I have 3 versions of this, 2 from Japan and 1 from North America. All 3 of those that I own run in medium resolution mode, and this board has been converted to run in standard definition. There is 1 version of the game that was released in Asia that is compatible, as well as this version right here. But, you know, for the captures, we're playing on a Sony PVM, which is how I do play these games and capture them. You have to use standard resolution mode. So would the game look a little bit better in medium resolution? Sure, but if you look at the models and kind of see that blocky polygon nature to them, that's not really going to look much better as far as how the models are concerned. Got the machine gun here. It's unfortunately not a reloadable weapon, but the shots do fire very quickly. Not sure if you noticed yet or not, but there are no gunshot effects in the game itself. On the M2 board, there's a third PCB at the bottom of the stack, and that has some ROM chips installed with the sound effects. The guns for this game have a speaker built in to the gun itself, so when you're shooting the gun, the sound effect comes through that. 2 main reasons why you're not hearing those sound effects on this capture is 1, my guns are for Evil Knight and don't have those speakers built in, and 2, even if I did wire an external speaker, which I have done in the past to hear the sound effects, you can't get that kind of sound effect into the mix. Just shot 2 cops there. They do pop up really easy, like pretty much any light gun game to hit them. These water effects to me are quite bad. You know, M2 kept touting its 2 to 3 times the graphical capabilities of the Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, and Saturn, but they do not look like it here. I do like this map, though, that kind of shows you how far into the stage you've made it. Evil Knight does have branching paths. Total Vice is completely linear. I have played this game probably a dozen times through, and I've never once found a scenario in which you're able to go to a different path. So this is the first part of stage 3. You're kind of in this warehouse area. This gigantic airboat comes out, and you're going to go into a water section till you get to what looks like an oil rig. You'll see it when it comes up, but it's quite funny. And that's the first part of stage 1. Soundtrack is pretty good on this one. Kind of has like a synth rock and roll feel to it. You will notice that the waves are made of polygons. They aren't a texture. You do have this interesting little transparent texture at the bottom of the screen that kind of looks like water spray. The M2 could handle transparencies quite well. You'll see that more in Evil Knight, but that's definitely something that the hardware was fully capable of pulling off. This is kind of not the most exciting section. You shoot these jet skiers, you shoot these guys in these Mad Max looking kind of quadcopter sort of things. Quadcopter, probably not the right word for those, but that's what I'm calling them anyway. Interestingly, once you get up to the oil rig or the, sort of platform, you're going to find something very interesting to it. I'll explain a little bit more when we get out there, but it is kind of quite comical. Not a lot to say about this here. I mean, honestly, you're shooting the same enemies, kind of a quiet part. I did get hit once, but it is pretty hard to get hit. When I was playing this, I had this game going into my Sony PVM, which was on the floor, and then I had RGB out going into my FrameMeister, which was then split from a capture card and into a monitor. So I had 3 different screens I had to be looking at the entire time to make sure the capture was going through correctly. And here's this oil rig. Just remember how small it looks from the outside, and then when you see the next part of the level, think of how big the internal space is. I'm not sure of this perspective, but this doesn't look like much more than a room or 2 from the outside, but when you get in, it magically becomes massive. I don't know, it's always kind of struck me as funny. But yeah, my gameplay on this is only okay, because like I said, I was sitting on the floor, shooting into one television while watching 2 other monitors to make sure everything was going through correctly. It was not the easiest situation. So now we're inside this oil rig. You got guys popping out yelling, "Die." You're going to hear the word "die" over and over again. Not a lot of different sound effects. "I'll kill you," also a popular one. So when you kind of look at the top of the doors and stuff, you're going to see a lot of aliasing lines. Apparently the M2 was capable of anti-aliasing, but you don't see it a lot on the M2 games. It's so hard to really try to say how powerful the M2 really was. These would be what would be considered first-generation games. A lot of the Konami M2 stuff was supposed to launch with the home console or directly afterwards. So if you think of, a first-generation launch day Nintendo 64 game versus something that came out at the end of its life, you do know that there is a huge gulf in difference between what it looked like the platform was capable of day one to what it ended up with. So really, this is kind of looking at launch window graphics, and then you have to kind of question, too, how quickly Konami rushed these games out. It was reported in magazines that Konami signed a licensing deal for the hardware in 1996. These games came out in 1997, so, I mean, you do the math, you're talking about maybe 12 to 18 months development time. So probably not rushed completely, but definitely they didn't take all the time in the world with them either. So as you kind of go around this oil rig, you'll start noticing that joke I made where it's much bigger inside than it is outside. The texture works pretty decent. It is a little muddy in spots, but you don't really get much pixelation. Those girders over there, the metal beams, have this like speckled pattern to them. Not sure what that's supposed to be. That guy there kind of reminds me of Rutger Hauer for some reason. Kind of just that flat top hair. I don't know why, but I played these games so many times, I kind of start putting names to some of the characters. I start thinking like what actor they may be. That gun texture there is so bad. A lot of the textures in Total Vice are pretty terrible. You know, like the warning sign doesn't look too bad, but then the gun texture looks pretty not great. Got double magnums here. The magnum bullets will shoot through one enemy and hit another one in the back. So basically you have a shotgun, you have an assault rifle which shoots 3 bullets at once, you have the machine gun which shoots as long as you have the trigger depressed, but does have limited ammo. You have a magnum and a double magnum. And here is the Tony Montana looking character, the drug dealer.
Thanks for ruining our deal. I'm gonna butcher
We've ruined his deal, and he's going to butcher us. Pretty fun boss. He shoots these rockets out at you. They can become a little bit cheat feeling because on harder difficulties, he will shoot more rockets than you're able to hold bullets in your clip. So there is definitely, you need to reload as they're coming at you. But, you know, it's a fun boss fight. It's got multiple stages. Not my favorite. I'd probably say this stage is my least favorite. This boss fight is my kind of middle of the road favorite on this one. I do like how these guys pop up. There's a little more interest in this boss fight than the others. The other two bosses just kind of have the same cycle over and over again with nothing else going on. This boss, they kind of gave a little bit more to do. Got hit there again. So overall, a fun stage. Like I said, not my particular favorite, but it's definitely fun all the same. This is probably next to Heat of 1198, one of the least shown and least known M2 games. I'm not sure if it was successful or not in the arcades when it came out. I know there was a bunch in the Chicago area or around Illinois. I think I chalk that up mostly to the fact that Konami of America was based in Illinois. So a lot of the arcade games like Hell Knight, Evil Knight, same name, different game, and Total Vice did come out a lot around here. And I think that's just because of the geographical kind of like location of the headquarters being here. But I don't know of any of these being in arcades active. One comic book sold a cabinet last year. I tried to get it from the person, but they were not very helpful as far as actually wanting to make a deal. And I know that there's one other arcade in Illinois that has a non-functioning unit with a bad monitor and a bad PCB that they're trying to fix. But if you see this in an arcade, consider yourself very lucky because I've never come across one or heard that anyone had one. Boss got one more hit in before I killed him. I do like that he gets electrocuted, though. You'll see all the bosses die, but they come back in the end. And there you go. That is stage 3 of Total Vice. Played it to stage 1. But go ahead and keep watching. We're going to go to stage 1 next, and then we'll finish up with stage 2.
store robbery.
Robbery in progress at the Countryside Mall. Suspected motorcycle gang activity. All units respond. Code 3.
So here's that loading time again. Maybe 10 seconds, maybe 15. Definitely not the minute people said it was. I'm not sure where those numbers ever got started, but having played all these games, I can tell you that the loading times, while they do exist, aren't as bad as people made them out to be. If you've seen any screenshots of Total Vice, this is kind of the area you're going to see them from. There's like 4 or 5 photos of this game online, and a lot of them come from this first area. I'm not sure why that is. Just happens to be how it was. So you're going to go through this convenience store first. This level looks like it has more effort in it than others in some spots. Some of the signs swing when you shoot them. Not all the bottles on the shelves are destructible, but there are some that you can shoot through. You can knock those shopping carts around. So there's just a little bit more effort, it seems like, put into some of the stages here. I'm not sure if they, built them 1, 2, 3 in succession, or, that's kind of a presumption. I doubt they made the game that way, but it seems like towards the end, things got a little bit less entertaining. You can see those bottles we can shoot there. Can shoot the red ones, not the blue ones. These guys yell idiot a lot. You idiot. That's what you're going to hear over and over again. It looks like a decent, I said ice cream there. It looks like a decent grocery store, though. That enemy, the woman, has a knife. She's one of the only enemies in the game that doesn't actually have a handgun. She also shows up holding a gun as well. The enemies get pretty repetitive. There's probably only 3 a stage, and you just see them over and over again. Not sure where that guy was hiding. Behind the shelf. This is a good part. Right through the cans. Blood on the wall. Classic. So once you get through the grocery store area, you're going to go through this little like back room. Kind of the story on this level is that there's a motorcycle gang who's taking over the shopping center. There's a little bit of story to the game, but not a ton. I do like the enemies that are running away. It kind of becomes a challenge to shoot them. You can hit anything in the background that you want, kind of like with House of the Dead, the original, where there's zombies standing up on hills in the distance. If you can hit them, you can score points, but it's kind of just more like of a challenge to see how many you can hit as they run away. Gonna pick up that machine gun again. Manage not to hit them, but you do have the cops standing behind the railing, and you can't really tell they're cops, so it's a really easy way to go ahead and lose a life on that. So on these interior areas, I mean, graphically, it definitely does look like it's better than something the Nintendo 64 could have pulled off. I just tend to compare the M2 to the Nintendo 64 because, you know, the textures have that same kind of smoothing look to them. And the Nintendo 64, while cartridge-based and having a lot of compression to fit on there, it just, to me, it looks like the closest, you know, facsimile of what the M2 was. You can shoot some of the posters off the wall. Just a little bit more interactivity to look at. I like these enemies. They're kind of fun. The biker gang, they've got their bandanas, they've got their sunglasses. They're exactly what you would think a Japanese video game corporation would think of when they thought of a biker gang, which was probably just watching movies. If you try to shoot him in the head with holding her, it barely ever works. If you just let him go, then you can hit him really easily. Get to this kind of subway area down here. There are going to be a couple of trains going through. Died again. About halfway through. I think this is set on medium hard. You can set it easier. The same amount of enemies come out. They just don't really shoot that much. It can be kind of strange. You'll sit there and they'll look at you for 7-8 seconds before actually taking a shot. Medium hard's kind of like the sweet spot between too easy and annoyingly cheap. I mean, granted, I'm not pumping quarters in to play, but on hard, it just becomes kind of, not unfair feeling, just less fun to play through overall. I think that train's coming up here soon. So, you know, like in the pantheon of things, you know, people that have played this game haven't loved it that much. I can see it in a way. I mean, compared to like, you know, Time Crisis and other light gun games that came out, it didn't really do much new. I mean, the guns had speakers built into them, but when, you know, I had Time Crisis with the pedals on it, it was kind of just a middle of the road light gun shooter. Good concept, decent graphics, you know, fun gameplay. There's that train. And I like that they're all hiding behind the wall with their backs pressed up against it. Kind of a fun little tidbit there. But, you know, this game was very quickly forgotten. I mean, I know I've said it before, but a lot of, you know, people said the M2 was very unreliable in the arcades, and I can definitely see where that would be with the CD-ROM drive. These games load data from the CDs. The only ROM chips on the games are going to be for sound effects. So when you're, say you had an arcade, you had it open 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're constantly streaming data from that CD-ROM drive, they're going to die pretty quickly. Granted, I can buy CD-ROM drives to drop into these things for $5 new in box. Back in 1997, you definitely couldn't just run out to the store and find a cheap drop-in replacement. Short of the CD-ROM drives failing, there's not on Total Vice, there is no timekeeping chip, but Battle Trist, Hell Knight, and Heat of 11 do have those chips on them. You know, the batteries would last 5-10 years, so I can't imagine that's where arcade reliability came into question, but it is something as a collector you do need to switch out time and time again every so often. It can be really hard now to find those timekeeper chips with batteries that still work. A lot of the times you buy the chips, they are new old stock, and the lithium batteries installed inside of them might already be dead. But other than that, it's proven to be quite reliable. The board I'm playing on came in as broken. All I had to do was thoroughly clean it, switch the CD-ROM drive out, and it worked perfect. So here we have the first boss. Definitely looks like Rutger Hauer to me, or maybe, I can't remember, the main villain of Blade Runner. What's his name now? It'll come to me the minute I stop recording this. When you watch the playthrough for Evil Knight, watch the first stage boss compared to this guy. I think maybe they reused the model, gave it different textures, but kind of the attack patterns are extremely similar. So I think they may have reused some of the animations and some of the models from Total Vice. Guy's pretty easy, shoots off a couple grenades at you. Has a chain gun, but if you just hit him in the head 3-4 times, he's gonna just, freeze up and reset his pattern. And then he throws the chain gun at you. So apparently if you shoot a chain gun 5 to 6 times in the air, it's gonna blow up. He must have like a good stack of a dozen chain guns behind him because he does like to throw them out pretty consistently. But overall, it's a pretty easy boss fight. I'm 99% sure I am not going to take a hit here. I thought about doing commentary while I played the game, but considering how much stuff I had going on just to get this into the computer as a capture, I figured doing voiceover at the same time was probably just going to be a bridge too far. 4 shots, that's how long it takes to destroy a chain gun. So in real life, if someone throws a chain gun at you, shoot it 4 times and apparently it blows up. And there you go, he's dead. Fires his gun off into the air for a prolonged period of time, and then he dies until he's alive later. But there you go. That is stage 1 of Total Vice. Go ahead and just sit tight. We're going to go through stage 2, which I consider to be the final stage, even if numerically it comes right in the middle.
Emergency. Hostage situation reported at the Burger Building on Wall Street, downtown.
So upcoming here, we have the Terrorist Siege. Now, I'm not saying that this happens in Nakatomi Tower from Die Hard, but I'm kind of saying it happens in Nakatomi Tower from Die Hard. There's just something about the stage overall that reminds me of Die Hard. There's a really funny line in the end that'll kind of tie that a little bit more together. So this is definitely my favorite stage. You get these kind of generic terrorists, some fun little office environments, shoot the trees, they shake. But, oh, that texture in the middle of that bush looks just so bad. It's blurry, it's 2D, the edges are all aliased. It really makes me wonder what they were doing at Konami when they made this game, because some of the demos from M2 versus what you see when you're actually playing it, had this actually come out at home, it probably would have gotten torn apart, because this is definitely slightly better looking than Time Crisis on the PlayStation 1, but considering M2 promises so much more, a little bit of a letdown. So you got those enemies back there in the white dress shirts with the ties. And they look suspiciously also like the receptionist that's going to pop up. Definitely trying to get you to shoot her. Guys say, hey man, a lot. Just like every other level, there's like 3 different sound effects. Eat this, die, shoot. And they use them over and over again. Machine gun's a pretty good weapon, although they seem to always give it to you in scenarios where there's actually not that much to shoot at, so you blow through a lot of your clip. That office guy definitely took a bullet right in the chest. That was my fault. So this, I think, level overall is probably the longest as well. It definitely has the best boss fight in it by far, though. There's that John McClane looking cop down there, which I shot. I didn't remember I did that. I don't even know how I managed that one. Don't come any closer. That's one of their favorite lines. So the animations in this level are a lot better, it seems like, than the first and the third. You have enemies that fall down the stairs as they die. In the first and the third level, you see a lot more that they just slump over and kind of fade from existence. Definitely some better work done on the animations here. So as we get into the second part of the office, just like with that oil rig, we've gone up a couple of flights of stairs so far, so we should be from the lobby to probably the 3rd or 4th floor, but we're going to come back out to the lobby and you're only going to be about maybe 5 feet up from when we went up that escalator. So geographically, I'm not sure how this office building works, but the floor plan is definitely going to be non-standard. Another civilian. Really shot every civilian in this level. I'm not kidding when I tell you capturing this was hard. I was playing on a 14-inch PVM that was 6 inches off the floor. I was sitting on the floor, on the carpet, shooting into the TV with one eye, while my other eye kept track of the computer, making sure the capture hadn't stopped. The first time I tried to capture this game, I got about 4 minutes in. The capture stopped working. I finished all 3 stages, looked up and realized that I hadn't captured more than just maybe the first minute of the first level. See, this room shows a lot more effort. You can shoot the monitors, you can shoot the windows, you can shoot the trees. There's just a level of interactivity in this particular room that seems to be way higher than the rest of the game. So it's so hard to figure out when the developers at Konami felt like going that little extra mile and when they just kind of glossed over it. Texture work's not great, but... Ooh, I think I did that on purpose. Why do you have a missile in an office building? On the 3rd floor. There's not even a key card. I assume that's why the terrorists are here, because there's that giant missile or jet engine sitting there. It just seems like it's not a great place to leave it. But here we are back in the lobby, and we're only 1 floor up after taking an escalator and going up 2 flights of stairs. And then we just jump back to where we came from. So that entire area, at the left-hand side of the screen, there's the escalator we went up. So we just went through the whole office building just to jump right back where we came from. Totally could have bypassed shooting all those guys. This particular screen seems to go on for a while too. The enemies just keep jumping out over and over again. Go to the bathroom, classic scene. Guy in the toilet falls in, pretty great. And he's there again. Now he's shaking his legs. And now he's covering his, you know. And that's the funny thing is, they went to the trouble to do 3 different animations, yet they put the exact same character in the stall. You think they would have made 3 characters, or just kind of taken a different model and put a different face on him? But it's the same guy in all 3 stalls, but they did give him 3 different animations, so it's kind of, they did the extra work, but they also didn't do the extra work. Just always something that like catches me off guard. Now going up the elevator. This is getting towards the end of stage 2. And right there is a point in which I'm talking about it being very cheap. You're never going to shoot off 3 of those guys before they shoot at you. They've already got a shot off before the game's even basically started. He's going down this hallway here. Texture work on the walls is so blurry and kind of neon. Just, I don't know. I just think Konami didn't do a lot with the hardware. I've seen so many better examples of what the M2 could do. I really just think it's Konami not really pushing the hardware that far. Got the power up and lost it immediately after getting shot. Really nailed it on that one. Forgot this guy was even there. I thought he had already slumped over and died, but then he hit me. Up the stairs, out the door, and there you go again. They're all shooting at you before the door is barely even open. You're definitely going to take damage there. Konami wants your quarters. And here is the final enemy of the game. Even though he's on stage 2, that's Funk, codename Total Vice. Blows up that helicopter. I'm not sure if you could hear underneath the commentary, but he says something about wanting a Christmas present, have a Merry Christmas, and that's what makes me think of Die Hard. My wife and I constantly get into a little bit of a disagreement, but I swear Die Hard's a Christmas movie, and I want to watch it every Christmas, right after Home Alone and before Christmas Vacation. So you go on this kind of helicopter scene. All the buildings below are made of polygons. I mean, granted, they are pretty basic models, but all of them are textured, so here's a scenario in which you would think that the PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64 would struggle. There you saw I can shoot the helicopter through the building. The buildings do exist, but your bullets do travel right through them as far as how the game's coded, so you can definitely get some cheap shots behind the building. And this is basically how this boss battle is going to go. The helicopter is going to go back and forth, just kind of strafing you with these missiles. It's unfortunate that bridge in the background isn't made out of polygons. The water below has no texture movement to it, and that ship's just sitting there, so everything seems kind of flat and stagnant compared to the helicopter going around you. In a lot of scenes, it looks like they're really trying, and in others, it just kind of is a little bit lazy, for lack of a better term, but overall, it's still a really fun game. This is the last game that I found for the M2. I had everything else, and Total Vice took a while to find. I now own 3 PCBs, all working with different game discs. One of them was broken when it came in, and that one I was able to basically just pay for the shipping on, and the other 2 were found by very nice collectors that help me find these things. And there you go. Funk is dead. Blows up. And he can't lose to us, although he definitely did. And I think we got Sergeant again, which is pretty low. I don't even think I got to enter my initials in on the high score screen when I finished up. But our duties are completed. So here's the stage 1 boss, the motorcycle gang leader. I know we played that stage second, but he does come up first as far as the kind of mugshot scene or whatever you want to call it goes in the end. And now you have the cartel leader, the smuggler they call him, the drug distributor. He is the stage 3 boss, but he definitely comes through second. Oh, and his face is ugly. Pretty tall though. It's almost 6'4". His name's Spike, by the way. It's really hard to read that text. You have to pause it. But his name's Spike. And here's Funk. Big red beret. Kind of looks like Wesley Snipes. Crime lord. Codename Total Vice. And if you read the Japanese arcade flyer, it says he's the boss you're looking for, the main enemy of the game. And in the cutscene he shows last. So definitely is the enemy of the game, even if he is on stage 2. But there you go. That's the playthrough of Total Vice, released in 1997 by Konami. It's not the greatest shooter ever, but it definitely is a really great part of my collection. I never would part with it. I definitely like Evil Knight much more, but this game gets a lot of playthrough with me and my friends, and hopefully one day when I have a little more space, I'll be able to get into a cabinet. But thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. You can follow us at Instagram at Chicago Game Collector. Otherwise, subscribe and like the video if you do, and we'll see you for some more fun M2 stuff coming up.